Welcome to Playing Favorites podcast. This is Justin. And
I'm Paul.
that's Paul.
Hello.
Hi, Paul. If
Hi.
it's how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about here today.
I am too.
Seems like
I'm glad that we are doing it for the first time.
yes, this
uh,
this is usually the podcast, right, where we talk about our favorite things, but we're doing things a little differently this time.
yeah. We usually like our favorite things for this time frame is talking about '90s movies. I guess that's kind of what we're trying to do recently. So if you haven't been here before, we typically stream every Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday nights is our stream. We're doing movie reviews, and then we do gameplay streams over on our YouTube channel over on Tuesday nights around 9:15 ish. Today we are roughly around time, so that's kind of neat. But
Yeah.
we are going to be, because of the first week of the month, we're doing this in October. We're going to be doing some space horror.
Yep. Some space horror. We're like dabbling. We're like putting our foot gently into the water for horror, as you know, it's still early in October. But we're getting there. We're gonna do some more scary, I guess, more horror themed movie. But yeah, the movie for today, Event Horizon. What was the tagline? Was it Infinite Space, Infinite Horror?
Infinite space, infinite. No, there's two taglines when I googled it too. The other one was like a haunted ship, and missing crew, infinite terror. Like
They gotta keep it
like
in there. In there, anyways. A wormhole of terror, you know, like I felt like I know we're gonna jump into it, but let's do our housekeeping.
Sure.
Oh,
So again, if first off, if you're first time here watching us, if you're in the stream or if you're watching on YouTube later, please like and subscribe to the channel.
yes.
We have a lot of cool back history you can go through too, where we talk about random favorite topics like favorite sequel, favorite horror movie. We've done that before.
Yeah, we've done our favorite horror
This
movie. I
movie
feel like
would never make the list, I don't think.
nope,
Um,
not even close.
I don't think we've ever talked about this film ever in any of our
It's
episodes.
barely a horror movie, though. It's barely a horror movie.
I
It's
mean,
like a horror themed drama. Or
it's horror. It's considered horror. I mean, it is.
all
It's
right.
horror. I mean, you could call it gorer if that makes it feel better. Like it's more of a gorer movie.
Like horror with the safety stuff on. It's very not it's almost like it's censored itself. I don't know. We'll talk about.
We'll dive into it.
We'll get
But
into
again,
this.
yeah, go like us on Twitter, check our socials, give us a gift,
Subscribe.
give us an Event Horizon gift or something like that if you can find
Ding
one.
that bell. Yeah,
But
right. If you can find who's out there making Event Horizon
but
gifts.
as I said, it's kind of funny that this came up. We weren't supposed to do this movie, and somebody in our different Discord, he's like, "I just watched Event Horizon this week," and I'm like, "Oh wow, weird. That's funny." And he loved it. I'm like,
Well,
it's great, classic, great movie. I've actually heard some other people say that too, beside that guy. But
love is a really strong word. I don't know, but okay.
you know what? We'll get into it. I'm gonna defend this movie a little bit more than your initial take here, but again,
I have some good things to say about it. Don't
okay.
get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Liberate me.
But before we get into the plot and the actual movie of the movie part, obviously, I want to talk about who directed this movie. First off, it came out in 1997, which honestly I was surprised. I knew it was around that time, but it seems like it would be an older movie, doesn't it? Sort of.
No, because they do show off some CGI effects very early on with like things floating in space, and it's like whoosh, and they bounce and things like that.
I
So
know,
it
but
feels
we
very
just
early.
watched it recently.
I would have said 95.
Okay,
I know.
but
I would have said like
recently we
95.
just watched a different movie that had CGI that was made in '93, and that had better CGI than this movie.
Ooh, are you putting The Shadow CGI above Event
Yes.
Horizon? I might actually differ with you on this because at least Event Horizon, when they use it, they don't like overuse it, and they try to
I'll give you
hide.
that.
They try to hide the strings, you know. They try to make
I
it not
just didn't
look
like
so
the
terrible.
floating liquid. Like it just like drive me nuts.
Oh, I loved it. Plasma everywhere.
Anyways,
Oh,
the movie came out
there's
in
a lot of
'97. It was directed by obviously there's an interesting connection there, but it was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. He made all the Resident Evil movies.
Yes, he
But for
did.
us, he came off. He made this movie after Mortal Kombat. He would have made Annihilation. Now, I'll be honest. I'm glad he didn't because Annihilation is a special place in our hearts. But
Of its terrible nature. Yes, how bad it is.
I don't
As
know.
is.
I don't know if Paul
Everybody's
W. S. Anderson could have made it better. Maybe it could have had more continuity. Maybe, but like,
But I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad whoever made it, like whatever corporation made Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I'm glad that they made it
and again, he
because
also might have done the X-Men movie too, but I don't know if that would have made a difference either. But well, anyways,
glad he did.
that's who directed it, and eventually went on to make too many Resident Evil movies. So that's the story of the director here. But
Hey, don't forget he also did Alien versus Predator, AVP. Don't forget AVP.
I've never seen that movie. Maybe we should watch that someday.
Ever seen that movie?
No, I
I
never
was
did.
gifted that movie when it first came out on DVD. I was given that was a Christmas gift from my brother. I was like, really? Okay, thank you.
Did you watch the sequel?
Cool. Requiem? No, I never watched the sequel. That was supposed to be. They were like, it's way more Predator, way more gory. It's more like a Predator movie. I was like, these are not. None of them are Predator movies. Like they're just silly. Like anyways, it's not worth talking about AVP anywhere.
Okay, that's
anytime.
fine. Just maybe a different episode. And a few other things, like I thought there was some interesting things with the production. Like initially, the script was more to do with aliens and less to do with, I mean, just hell, I
Oh,
guess, and stuff like
yeah, you
that.
said it was like tentacle monsters or something were
What
like
does it say on
responsible?
Wikipedia here? It says, um, where does it say? Where's that thing I saw? The
So
ship
it was
itself.
like
He wanted it to be rather it be like the ship itself possessed, kind of more akin to The Shining. Um,
yeah,
the
that
Haunting.
was one of the things I wrote down was this is trying to be like The
Yeah, it is trying
Shining.
to be a Shining. There's a scene that really
Yeah.
kind of speaks to that too. But I
Yeah.
guess initially the guy, the director, he rewrote a bunch of stuff because he felt that it was too similar to Alien. Which there's some scenes that look like Alien in this movie. And eventually it was like tentacle monsters or something like that. I don't know. That's what it says on Wikipedia. What I do find it interesting though is that there is a whole like fan base that considers this. I don't know if you are as familiar with this, but do you know what Warhammer 40,000 is? Okay,
Yeah, I
so
know actually a good deal about Warhammer.
oh, you do. Okay, so they consider
Yes.
this like a pseudo sequel to Warhammer because they use
Oh,
the same philosophy of traveling through space that the Event
yeah,
Horizon
the folding
does.
of space. Yeah.
And the fact that if you go through that,
Oh,
it's like going through hell. But see, in Warhammer, they learn to shield themselves from the hell, where this is like the earlier things of it. Because technically, this movie starts in
Realm of
2015, which I think
Madness.
is really interesting. It's like
I know. I
in
know.
2015, this thing
When it
happens.
when that came up in the opening thing, I was like, "Ooh, like the future is now." Like what happened in 2015? And it wasn't like that big of a deal because then it
So,
really like starts in 2047. That's
mhm.
like when this movie takes place.
But
But
I
yeah, I
thought,
know when it said 2015 too, I was like, "Oh, hello. What happened in our past?"
and then there's a few other post productions, the pre production stuff I want to bring up, but we can talk about that later when we get deeper in the episode. So first, initially, what's your initial thoughts of your first viewing, Paul,
Oh,
of
you
Event
know what?
Horizon?
I mean, do you want me to give you should we give everybody a rundown of what this movie is about before
Sure, go
we
for it. You
dive into it?
give me your first time watching it. You give me
Sure.
your pitch.
This was my first time watching it, and so it starts, text crawl telling us, 2015, but then 2047, we learn that this ship called the Event Horizon was on its first voyage, and it was like a new kind of warp drive, and it was going to make its maiden voyage to Proxima Centauri. It was going to make it there very quickly, but it mysteriously disappeared. And as they say once we get by the ultimate 90s music intro,
Oh my
like it's
god,
all
that intro was
like a
horrible. It was so loud and
dude,
obnoxious.
it was like a techno wet dream from the 90s. Like it was just
I'm
like,
like,
but if you looked in the credits, Orbital, popular
yeah,
techno
I read
duo of
that. I
the
read that
time,
on the thing.
and
Yep.
music from The Prodigy was in there, especially
Yeah.
and over the end credits. But anyways, they describe this as like the worst disaster in the history of history. Like the ship disappeared. Like it just as far as they know, it disappeared. But then Suddenly, 7 years later, it reappears near Neptune, and a rescue vessel, a vessel, the Lewis and
Lewis and
Clark,
Clark.
that's
Lewis and Clark.
designed.
I love
Yep.
how sci-fi movies use like, I mean, The Matrix did this too with the
Yeah,
Nebuchadnezzar,
like,
and like they use these like very old-fashioned explorer names for naming
sure.
their ships. You know.
And they've they've got this a very specific, like a rescue ship. This is what this crew is used to doing, is making these kinds of rescue runs. Is going to be dispatched with Captain Miller, that's Laurence Fishburne.
Mm-hmm.
But the real like star of this is technically Sam Neill, but for the first part of the movie. And then he becomes a supporting character in the second part of the movie.
Yep.
But Sam Neill, Grant from Jurassic Park, is kind of our lead for a while because we're watching things from his perspective. He's having visions of his dead wife, basically saying like, "Come and get me, like come join me."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like weird. And then we learn that the ship that she was also on or that she was on the ship, but he was getting like, or we think that she's on the ship. This is some of the problems I have with the actual content of the movie, because I'm not clear by the end of this if she was actually on the ship, because she
She
does
never
kill her.
was. She never was on
Yes,
the ship.
but it seems like she is in the beginning, because that's what like motivates him to go and find out what happened to
So I've been
Event
thinking about
Horizon.
that. I don't know what the actual answer is here. Who knows? But we can.
I think they
I'm going to
fucked-
give you. I'm going to give you my theory when
I
we
think
get
they
to
messed
the end. Well, because like it technically doesn't start off with the rescue mission. He starts with him just in like some sort of space station, having a dream of this eventual horror that we're about to see. You know, a flash of like himself and like or somebody. I think it was himself. And then
without eyes. Yep.
well, no, even like himself,
Oh,
like as he becomes later in the movie. Like he's like hanging
oh,
there.
that's
He cut up.
right. Yeah.
So like
Yep.
I
Yep.
I've always and like so he delivers it in for like this is me. I'll give you the theory because it kind of like clicks if you think about it. He's the one that created the mission to go. Like he makes this rescue mission go because they receive a signal from the Event Horizon. Well, how did they get? Who got the signal? Well, Sam Neill did. Did Event Horizon send a message to him? Because he's like
Oh,
the
yeah,
creator.
but that kind of is weird, because it's like, okay, so the Event Horizon, because this is what we were kind of like dealing with as we're watching it. Is the ship itself possessed, or is there something in the ship that's possessing the crew,
The
or not
ship, the
possessing the
ship
crew,
is
but like
now a
giving?
the ship has become a living entity.
But what does that
That
mean? Like,
we don't know. We've never been to the chaotic dimension of hell.
no,
So,
we haven't been to chaos dimension.
um, but
I can't wait to talk about the chaos dimension a little more.
but no, like the whole gist of it, even the synopsis, if you read Wikipedia, it's like about having a ship that is a living ship. Like so, like The Shining is kind of a living house. It's like
Sure,
you
sure.
know, it like I believe since well, Sam Neill has a kind of a relationship with the ship. He made it. It was like he is the father.
He designed the gravity drive, which
Yeah.
allows them to hold space time and make these long journeys.
So I
Yep.
think like he's starting to get like tainted from a distance, and why he is, how he is, I don't know. That part. That's just like the only thing
Well,
that makes sense. You know.
I feel like you could also just say he's genuinely curious as to know what happens to the ship. Like the mission could have begun, and I'm sure like whoever government, whatever, is also interested in getting this ship back. If it was the first of its kind, a lot of
Oh well,
money
yeah.
sunk into
That's
it.
how we could get the
So
crew.
I
But
don't think it's too like much of a stretch. But what's interesting is that they make it's a secret to the crew, and
mhm,
to Captain Miller, who Laurence Fishburne. Again, the best part of this movie is Captain Miller and the crew. I
sure,
have to just say.
absolutely.
And I would love to actually watch adventures that they go on. I think Larry Fishburne as a ship's captain like this is great. I would love to see this crew's adventures, like them rescuing others. And it's so sad, by the end what happens. But I was actually like kind of invested in the story of the crew of the Lewis and
Yeah.
Clark.
No, they're all
If
everything there plays a good is great.
even
It,
Cooper, even Cooper.
yeah, that's where I kind of felt like the initial crew of Alien. Like they just have that kind of scene where they're all kind of chilling in the
Ensemble cast.
common and stuff like the commons and stuff like that. What did you? What was it like? Did you like seeing Jason Isaacs, Lucius Malfoy? That was DJ.
Oh,
The
DJ
doctor. Yeah.
is Lucius Malfoy. Oh, okay. I
Lucius.
thought you meant Draco. Lucius.
Yeah,
Lucius
Lucius.
Malfoy. Yes, yes. I've seen him in other stuff, so it wasn't jarring. I was like, oh, it's him. Like, great. I
It
like
took me a
him. I
minute. It
think
took me
he's
a
a
minute
great
to
actor.
register. To be honest, that was him.
DJ.
But then, yeah.
Yes, too. I was like, I don't recognize you with not white long hair, but yes. But my personal favorite character is the character, Mr. Justin. Just because, like, right from the beginning when they get on to the Lewis and Clark and Dr. Weir, Grant, is on the ship. Sam Neill's character, he's kind of like in the way, and Larry Fishburne is just kind of like ordering his crew around, like do this, like getting ready for
Yeah.
takeoff and for the voyage. It's funny, and it just like he turns and goes, "Mr. Justin," and I just busted out laughing just because of the way my kids call you, Mr. Justin. It just reminded me of that, and I couldn't help it. Every time.
I have nothing
Justin,
against my
Justin.
name. I like my name. My name's a good name. It fits me. It's who I am. But I don't like hearing it in science fiction movies. It doesn't fit. It sounds so weird.
I didn't know how to say this to you, but I agree with you
No,
wholeheartedly.
it's completely.
It feels weird on a
makes sense.
spaceship.
Yeah, like it's like I'm like you got like all the other ones. It's like makes sense. Miller makes sense. Cooper makes
Peters,
sense.
Miller,
Like,
Cooper,
even
they're all
Smith,
like last names.
You know,
And
like
then there's Justin.
and they don't call him by his last name at all. He has a last name.
Oh, but you know what? on par with this is Malfoy's character here too, DJ.
Yeah, DJ.
Because
That was a weird
that's
name
like
too. That's a weird name
that's
too.
like a guy you met in middle school or something. Somebody named DJ. It's weird to see him as like the EMT, the doctor on board. DJ.
He doesn't.
Doesn't
No,
he have
he,
like
he
a real
doesn't.
name?
He
Or is
doesn't.
he like,
He doesn't have a
or,
last name. It's just.
or is he like a Dr. Jones and they just call him DJ for
Yeah,
short?
DJ. Yeah.
See what I did there? Okay. All right. I have to. So they go into stasis to make this long journey, and our sympathetic character at the beginning, at least, Dr. Weir.
Which wait,
Sam
I
Neill's
have
character.
to add something in this. So he. Well, I want to just chime in because I thought this was funny. So they're in stasis.
Oh, don't you spoil my thunder about his dream and what happens when he wakes up.
Well, his dream. You can. But the one thing about the beginning of the dream I just want to bring up is that they have a sticker, a piece of tape, that says his name on it. Like I don't understand why. Like I thought, is this part of the dream? But no, it wasn't. It was just there.
Just have a sticker for him. Oh, but when he like gets a vision like that, he is coming out of stasis, or like a dream. He's coming out of stasis. It's like I don't know, a tube of water, and he just like barfs him out, and he sees I think it's his dead wife.
Yep.
And they pan up, and she's got no eyes, and his reaction.
She's just
I
sitting
never
in a
thought
chair
I would
naked
want
or
to
something
see.
like that.
Yeah, I never thought what a horror movie with Sam Neill would be like, but his reaction was the best. He went, "Oh!"
Yeah, I thought you'd laugh at that.
I literally wrote that down. Oh, oh gosh. There's a lot of these like weird moments in this movie. Just like, who told you to do this, actor or actress? Why did you?
See, that's the thing. Like, I think I think he's being affected by the ship because he's getting the same hallucinations that everyone else eventually gets.
But much earlier on, like
Yeah.
from far away. So yeah, you have a point that maybe the ship is trying to like send messages specifically to.
He knows that the ship knows that Neill's the only one that's going to get people there, and the ship needs a crew because it needs to get back to chaos. That's like my best. This is me trying my best. You know me, I'm good at like trying to like problem solve plot holes.
I appreciate it. You're doing it. You're doing your best here for a movie that really doesn't give you much to work with. So they do come across. They finally get to the Lewis and Clark, or to the event horizon, and it's like in a thundercloud, like outside of Neptune space, I guess.
Yeah.
They get on there. They use the umbilicus, the umbilical cord between them. I love that word, the
Mm-hmm.
umbilicus. They get onto the event horizon, and they're starting to like, and this is like some of the horror elements beginning. Like they're passing by things, and they like see like, oh, there's a little blood on the ground, and then the camera pans over, and like
A lot of blood.
the walls are like painted in blood, and like human corpses are draped against the wall, just like skinned bone and gore, just like
Yeah.
attached to the wall. Um, but we do get to see the gravity drive. They have to walk down a corridor that looks like it was straight out of the Museum of Play, right?
I
Like
did
the
notice it.
spinning tube.
It's
And I was like, they saw that at a museum and thought it was cool.
I
And
think
they
it's the other
decided to
way
use it.
around. I think somebody that built the museum watched Event Horizon. That's what I think. Those are that's like a a water park slide that they make nowadays. It's like the dark slide that have the little
Yes,
holes in
with the
it.
holes in it, and the light coming through. And
I mean, they were.
okay,
To be fair, to slow down for a second, I feel like up
yeah.
at this point, it's a very relatively engaging, intriguing movie.
Oh, I'm with you there. Like we were talking about how this movie is really two movies. This first half of them like getting there and trying to assess what's going on, I was invested. I actually thought it's a little slow in
Yeah,
spots,
it's
a
slow.
little boring here and there, but I was interested enough in like the way the crew was interacting, in the way like they were finding weird stuff. No, it definitely had my interest, and then it just goes off the rails. But
Uh,
we go down the Museum of Play corridor. I just want to talk about the gravity drive itself because we get to see it for the first time,
wait,
and
but
it's
with the quarter really quick. The quarter, like I love how there's like a little comment that's like, "Oh, this thing looks like a meat grinder." It's like, "Oh, great!" Some foreshadowing. It doesn't end up being a meat grinder, but it's like foreshadowing of like things to come.
no, you're right, and I thought for sure someone will die by those spiky engineering doors that close like this. I'm like, someone is getting cut in half. Like someone is going to be jumping through, like Larry Fishburne does in the end, but he gets through it. I was expecting someone to die, and like the room of the where the gravity drive is inexplicably covered in spikes. Like enormous spikes. Like we were playing God of War on Tuesday. Remember when I got killed by the spikes falling on me?
Yeah,
It's like those spikes are everywhere. Like what the hell how does that help the gravity
and
drive?
yeah, Sam Neill like
I don't
design. I
understand.
don't know if he was the design of the ship. Obviously, he's the creating of this tech science, but did he was the designer too? Like
Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna say that the chaos universe is like an S&M universe. And the gravity drive, he's like an S&M scientist. So he was like, "This is where you go when you've been a bad boy." And like I don't know, there's something about like, why do you have spikes in this room? But I expected somebody to get killed on spikes. Nobody does. Everybody like falls near them, but nobody gets like a spike kill. It was really disappointing. It's like seeing a railing and not seeing somebody get thrown off the railing. It's like it's right there. It should be a railing kill. But yeah, we do. Oh, I forgot to mention this that there is a distress signal coming from the event horizon. This is kind of important, I guess.
Well,
I don't
wait,
know. What
back
do you
up for
think?
1 second before they get to the event horizon. This adds to my theory. Actually, I'm just going to keep pointing
Oh,
things out
oh boy.
about it being a living ship and and stuff like that. So before they get on the event horizon, they're trying to do scans, right? And like they're like, oh, there's living things everywhere, but I can't get a clear. I don't know where they are. It's the
Yeah.
entire ship, right?
Oh, okay. Because I didn't even think about that. I do remember that part, and I honestly thought it meant that there were things. Like to me, I was like, oh, there's something on the ship, like some organisms on the
Me
ship
getting
that
the
are.
experience of rewatching this film, I knew the answer already. So it's like
Ah,
I sit there, I'm like, oh, that's neat. I didn't think about that before. I mean, I'll be quite honest. Like, I hadn't seen this movie since it came out. I think I rented it on DVD, which I think it's
yeah.
funny. I did read a section on the post production of this thing where the DVD release this film was like a way more successful than the actual theater release. So like,
Oh man,
yeah, like
that's
it
hmm,
just no one wanted to go to theaters to see it. We read about it. It's like it made like $1 million out of a $60 million budget. It was like
yeah, 42. Yeah, it came up 18 million short from what it was
But
what it costs to
but they
make
were
it. Yep.
considering making like a director's cut because of how well it did on DVD, and it never came to fruition. Because I guess this movie, we'll get into that in the second half of the show, was too graphic and was too gory initially. They cut like 15 minutes out of the film because it was too extreme for the test audience. And
Wow.
they like, I guess even like the directors were like taken aback because it's like they were doing like other shots without him involved, like here, go make a bunch of gory things. And I think we get a lot of that in some of like the little like flashy scenes we get at the end of the film. Um but like, yeah, like they had to cut it down, and it's just, and then I guess all the data and all the imagery and all that editing was lost. It's gone.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Not that I, not that I'm like I mean, it stinks that, like, it's just lost, but not that I'm like a real preserver of this movie or like wanting this movie to be preserved.
Maybe it
But
needed that extra 15 minutes of gore to make it
I
better.
guess, I mean, I'm looking here and seeing what the director himself said, that like a lot of what was actually cut was all of the hell footage of what was, like what was in that dimension.
Oh.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it could have been a different movie altogether with that footage in. Maybe it would make the movie make a little bit more sense, or the stakes would be a little bit more raised. But this movie has a lot of problems with it, besides like the stuff that's cut out of it. I don't know
Sure.
if
No,
you
I
can
just,
save this movie in the edit necessarily.
but
There's just some weird stuff going on. All that coolant leaking through, and Justin walking through the coolant and seeing the cool CGI bounce off of
they
him.
say Justin way too many times this movie. Like, it drives me
Yes.
nuts. It drives me
Yes,
nuts so
they
much.
do.
I don't
Justin,
remember
Justin,
even noticing.
Justin.
I don't remember noticing this.
You
Like,
didn't?
in my first viewing, I don't know why. Like, I don't know. It just like, I honestly, to be honest, like my ending memory of this film, it was completely different than what happens.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I just like changed the ending in my mind. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if I was blending it with another Laurence Fishburne. I could have been blending with a Matrix. Who knows? Like,
Oh, nice.
honestly, I probably was. I'm thinking about it now. I am blending this with like Matrix 2, when he's on the truck and fighting the Agent Smith, because I'm like thinking that they're on top of the hull of the ship fighting each other, and that's the end of this film, and that never happens. And I'm like, why did I think this?
Oh my gosh. But you took a note right out of what I wrote down when I was watching it. I said they say Justin a whole lot, and Lawrence Fishburne, I wish he would fight more often. I wish he like got a chance to sock Sam Neill in this movie, like give him a good one across the jaw. But we do they do discover the ship's log. It's on a CDRW that's stuck in the drive, and she has to pull it out. It's nice
CDs,
CDR.
they
can
came
rewrite on
they
that.
came back in style in 2042. I mean,
Yes, 2047 was when.
I was laughing when
yeah.
when you first get into the ship, they got floating things around,
Yep,
and you got like notebooks that like
wrenches.
a bottle of water that's supposedly in a frozen ship because it's ice cold.
Yep, but got to show you the cool water effect that we built in in CGI. That's what and I was like, I'm watching it. I'm like, all right, like cool, you did it. You made stuff look like it's floating. I'm like, but it looks like a cartoon. Like it's still really early CGI.
This
movie doesn't dwell on that stuff.
When I my memory of this film when I saw it in the 90s, I thought it looked great. Like, I mean, like you gotta give it.
Of course. It was like one of those movies. It looks like it was made for a 3D showing though, because like they take an object and it's like whoosh 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 whoosh, like right up to the camera,
yeah,
and then like bounces off, and it's like, yeah, this was meant to be seen in a theater. It's funny to me though that it got most of its traction on DVD, or on home video.
People didn't want to go to the theaters for those things.
Okay, let's get back to the story here. They do get the distress signal from before, and DJ, the Dr. J, believes he can hear the phrase in Latin, liberate me, which is save me. So they're like, oh man, oh, okay. Mr. Justin, he's down near the gravity drive and basically gets sucked into it. It turns on very much like the Stargate, and you see like a
Yo,
liquid, and he comes
yes.
close and he's like, "What the hell is that?" And he kind of like puts his hand on it, and it sucks him in. And then he goes in, and he's apparently attached to a line. So Cooper's on the other side, like, "Come on, baby bear, I got you."
Why do they call him
And
Baby Bear? I don't understand
I don't know either
that.
because he's the youngest of the crew. I guess they call him
Baby
Baby
Bear.
Bear.
Justin,
Come on,
Baby
Baby
Bear.
Bear.
Justin,
And
Baby
it's what's
Bear.
funny is Peter's the science officer or something. She's just like a grown woman, the one with the kid,
Mm-hmm.
and she calls him. She's like, "Come on, Baby Bear." I'm like, everybody calls him Baby Bear. I really thought Cooper was just being a dick, but no,
Yeah, like it
they
makes
pull him out.
more sense when he says it, for sure. But where's the thing
Sure,
I have a question on? Like, okay, so you're in this gigantic Event Horizon ship, right? It looks huge. Why it has a
yes,
gigantic hallway from one end to the other, I have no idea. They don't explain that. Like the science that they explained earlier, where like the folding of space and all that stuff, all that makes
great.
sense. This gravity well making a black hole, all these things make
Well, you
sense.
know what? There is a lot of 2001: A Space Odyssey in this movie too, because the design of the ship is very similar to the design of the ship in 2001. A like forward crew like bridge module along like nothing that you can like really in 2001 you can't access it by like walking down it, but like a long kind of body and then the actual thrusters, the things that are actually, moving the ship all the way in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And like the communications relay or something is back there too. So in order for them to do repairs, they actually have to go extravehicular and go like outside and do it. So it wasn't like too much of a stretch for me, but I've never seen one where you can like disconnect it. You can just like blow up what's in between and separate it. It reminded me of a battle bridge from Star Trek where you can, take off the disc and then
Oh
like
yeah,
one part
it
goes
makes
like one part
sense.
goes to
You got a
safety and this
very
one
you get a
turns like
very
a
dangerous black hole in the back of the ship. I mean that good safety
an
precaution.
escape plan. Yep,
Yeah.
an escape plan just in case.
But
So
one thing I'll add about just like okay, before we get into, I think we'll take a break here soon. Is this
hold
how?
on.
Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to hear what you say, but they do get Justin out, and he goes catatonic. He's just like
oh, that's right. Sorry, we're jumping around.
unmovable, like non-responsive whatsoever, and they're still trying to figure out what happens, and then they are able to open the log a little bit more. But go on. What were you going to say before we take a break here?
Yeah, sure. I just the way the ship is so gigantic looking,
Yeah,
but yet you look so small when they're walking around, and the fact
yeah.
that
It's like
they're
three rooms.
yeah, and the
Three
fact that
rooms.
they're like they separate and all this like as we get into the second half of the movie here, it's like we're getting a sense of this ship is gigantic, especially when they're in the hallway, right? How long does it
Yep.
take to get to one end to the other? Like, did it take
2 minutes.
two
No,
minutes? Because
two
like
minutes
they
everywhere.
have what
They
20
walk
hours?
and they're there instantly.
I think they have like 20 hours because well, the last thing we'll say is the thing that happens when he goes catatonic or whatever that word you just said.
So,
It
he's frozen.
destroys the Lewis and Clark, right? It fries that ship.
Yeah, like a shockwave comes out, like with him, like he's thrown out, and like a shockwave ripples through the ship, damaging the Lewis and Clark beyond repair. And like they try to repair it, they manage to repair it, but it severely damages the ship and
But they had like what
forces the entire crew to get onto the event horizon in order to survive. And yeah,
which has
this is
bad
when
air.
Justin comes out of his yes. So they only have what did they say, like 20 hours
Yeah,
of
20
breathable
hours.
air before too much CO2 builds up. But Justin comes out of his catatonic state, and I think that's where we should take a break. We'll talk about what happens when he wakes up from going beyond the Stargate.
Sure. Well, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about the second movie that we watched.
Hello, welcome back. Here, we're going to talk about the second half of Event Horizon, which really is a second movie.
Yep.
There is a lot of difference between what happens in the first part of this and in the second part. Um, for one, we do have Justin, Mr. Justin, comes out of his catatonic state. He wakes up, and what he does, though, he like kind of disappears. Peters is the one, she's the one kind of like, she sees her son and I think she's starting to like hear things and starting to be a little scared.
She got
And that's
hallucination, so it's like something was inside
yeah.
like this tent looking thing, scraping.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
like before this, you saw her watching a video. Like she's divorced, I guess, and her divorced husband is taking the kids for Christmas. So gonna give her a backstory, I guess. But you see a video where the son's in a wheelchair, right?
Yep.
So when she pulls over the tarp from the hallucination, she sees her son there, like with like all these
Oh,
like
it's like
gaping, horrible
wounds,
wounds.
wounds. Yeah, all over his legs.
It's
It's
creepy.
gross. But then she like looks over and where Justin was laying, he's gone. And then they're trying to find him and they find out he's in the airlock and he's trying to kill himself by decompressing and shooting himself out into space. Which he starts doing. And Miller, Laurence Fishburne's character, is like coming around from the outside and he's like, listen, baby bear, I'm gonna tell you what to do. Fold yourself into a ball and breathe out all your
And
air.
huff
And the
and
guy,
puff and blow all the air. I'm like, why? What is this line?
right? But because he's baby bear, they gotta use like storybook kind of language to talk to him. So
How
like the
did
big
he?
bad one.
How did he get on this crew?
Meanwhile, Justin is holding his eyes and going back and forth, and blood is streaming from him as like the gravity is failing and decompression is happening. But Miller does save him, even though he is really in a bad way, like coughing up blood. He's been exposed to the vacuum of space for a significant
I
but
mean,
short period of time. But they do save him, and they put him in stasis, and they're like, he'll live. I think DJ was the best thing, the best line. He's like, he won't be pretty, but he'll live. And it's like, damn, dude, all right.
but like that scene, I forgot. I just like this is where I'm just like when I'm watching it because I'd seen this before. I don't remember it being this violent. Like I have no memory of. I remember there being like a horror scenes and some scary things, but I don't remember it being this like extremely violent. Like that's like a kind of a shocking turn for this film up to the point that we've seen. They've tried to scare you with like creepy things, like oh, like
Those don't really land. They don't really land as
yeah,
much
like
for
but
me.
then all of a sudden here it's like you got this really violent death, like almost gory
Yeah.
death. That he
And
doesn't die, but like his looks like his eyes are exploding out of his sockets, and like
that is space horror. The jump scares and hallucinations really took me out of the movie. The space horror aspect of it, of like the danger of decompression, when there's a hull breach and they're only got this much air, like that to me was more intriguing than these like weird visions. But all the crews start to see people from their past that only they can see. That kind of like represents their deepest fears or their closest held like secrets or regrets. And like Miller sees the guy who he let like burn to death. Basically, he had
and he
to
can feel,
abandon
but you
him.
can also feel the visions too. Like he mentioned a
Yes,
comment
they're
where
like living. It almost feels like living things, which for a while I was like, I thought this was like an Isaac Asimov story. I think it was called, I forget the name of it. I think it might just be called Insanity, where a crew of we're seeing things, we're hallucinating things, and it was actually like another life form trying to communicate with them. In this case, I thought, oh, maybe it is like some kind of life form, but it's like a malicious thing. It's trying to drive them crazy. It's trying to keep them away
and that
from
was the
something.
original script, pretty much.
I kind of want to see the original movie. Like, I think that would have been a better movie than The Shining in space. But, anyways, the crew starts to see it. All of them have their own like little stories.
I don't
Except
think
for
there's one
Cooper.
we didn't.
Cooper doesn't get it because he's like off the ship in a spacesuit
I
for
love.
most of it.
Wait. I love like just we can just like kind
Cooper.
of jump around like the ending of the movie. Cooper's arc is actually pretty fun. Like I like him. Like he's funny,
Damn, I'm
and
good.
like he has like some comedic
He's got
moments when
some
he's
good
like by himself later, like in space. Like it's just
Yep.
like I like his whole arc. But you don't really get like Stark's hallucination, which her name is Stark, like the blonde haired
Yeah.
lady.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, she doesn't. You don't see any of hers. She confronts Weir too, and because we learn in the end that Weir is really the antagonist. He's like, I don't know, the vessel that the gravity, like the chaos realm, is like working through, and he's trying to actively bring the ship back through that other dimension. Um, but we got to talk about the log, because they do decode more of the log, and that's when we get a good old fashioned blood orgy. Justin, people definitely banging in the background, and like at the same time also like shoving their fists down other people's mouths,
Eyes
and
getting
just like
pulled out of people's
blood.
sockets.
Yep. And like I love it because Laurence Fishburne's watching it, and then he just looks up and goes, "We're leaving." And then Sam Neill is like coming after him and saying like, "No, no, 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 no," and he like turns on him and he's like, "Fuck this ship, we're leaving."
Yeah, but like there is a moment where like throughout the beginning, like Sam Neill I think is trying to help and figure this out. Like he's obviously being tainted, but like I don't think that it wasn't until like the very end where he's like, "I'm already home" or something, where that creepy thing happens where he like goes into the shadows and whatever. And
Goes in, comes back.
but like you have the whole scene earlier where he's like trying to stop the gravity well. He crawls into that like random like one of the spheres opens up and he crawls into a hole and it's a green tunnel and
Oh,
like
the circuit board tunnel. Yes,
visually that's cool. Like that was a cool
I thought
looking
it was cool
place.
too.
Yep.
It's like a Jeffrey's tube from Star Trek, like where they
Mhm.
do all like the behind the scenes stuff. And I was like, cool, circuit board tunnel.
Like that was kind
Yes.
of a cool scene where it's like like something's coming. But I like how like the light goes in and off, and
Yep.
it's creepy. It's whatever. And I don't like his wife's scares though. She's like weird looking. Like she's just like she's not
Because
scary. And like when she tries to come off scary, right? But then she has like weird delivery of just like it's like almost like you forgot to do the laundry. It's like come stay with me. like it's not like scary or creepy at all.
yeah, and but I mean, like for him, like the first time seeing it and going, whoa, like I get it. It's a pretty bad dream. Dr. Weir's wife is played by Holly Chant, who does not have any other acting credits to her name.
Oh,
So take that for what you will. Maybe this was the beginning and end of her career. Perhaps she is just somebody who knew somebody on the production and got to do this little
she
bit
was
part.
willing to get naked on a spaceship.
Yes, and hold Grant to her
Oh
to her
my
belly.
god, such an odd scene.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. I was like unexpected boobs, but like not in any way that anybody wanted or anybody would want to see. Like it's
With
not
like weird underwear too. It's like this like not normal. Like it was like this with
space
tan.
underwear. Is that
Sure.
the future's underwear? Is that what it's
Yeah.
going to look like?
Yep. Yep.
I'm not a fan of the future
Everything
underwear
comes
though.
back in style in the future. You got the CDs and
Oh,
tan underwear and yeah.
frumpy underwear. So you do get a DJ decodes more of the message from the blood orgy scene, and it's not save me, it's save yourself from hell is what it translates to be. And so they figure out that the ship's drive somehow opened a dimension to like some kind of hellish universe outside of our own. And by doing that, somehow the ship is now sentient. The ship is self-aware. So Miller, I think, makes the right choice and decides to destroy it.
The ship's been sentient the whole
Oh.
time.
But they just discover it. Like,
Oh yeah,
that's what
they
they
realize it.
figure
Yeah.
it out.
Like
Yes, they
that's the
actually.
thing. Like they make this big revelation with these logs, and I'm like, it doesn't really have changed the outcomes of anything. It's like, oh man, if only we have known.
I know. We would have turned. Well, one of the times when Laurence Fishburne is trying to get Sam Neill's attention, and Sam Neill like walks away. Don't you turn your back on me, mister. It was like a parent scolding a child.
I think that delivery too is like, it's like, why is
Don't
this?
you walk away from me, mister.
The whole line is like, why is this happening? I don't know. Why is this happening? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't.
He starts to go. He's like, "Don't you walk away from me, mister." Oh my gosh. Yes, but I do. And this is not me saying these words, but he says that, and then a little while later, he says, "Fuck this ship," and then and then we start to see the crew kind of falling, dying one by one to succumbing to, in some cases, their hallucinations and those catching up with them, or in some cases, Dr. Weir, Grant himself, like he kills DJ and he does like knock Stark out, but that's it. He doesn't. He like confronts her and that's it. But then it's Miller who like faces off with him, and you see like his face, like he's already ripped his own eyes out.
Before all that happens, there's a couple things I want to call out. So like you have, because
Please.
like by the time you've watched the final battle, like there's only like what Cooper, everyone else is dead except for Stark.
Oh, let's talk about Cooper. Yes.
And we have Weir's left, and then we have Miller, and then obviously Cooper. They don't know he's alive; they think that he's dead. But before all
Cooper's
that,
outside the ship.
you got them all kind of like getting tainted by the thing. You got DJ that's almost like starts killing Weir at one point. Like he just goes nuts, right? You don't really get his like hallucinations, but obviously that's like a showing of him being overly aggressive, right?
See them all kind of like breaking down a little bit, and like,
but like
Laurence Fishburne's trying to hold them all together.
And like you have like conversation, then you learn about the backstory of he tells DJ the story of the fire, like you mentioned it earlier about him losing somebody, and how the ship knows things that no one else knows, and like this is where you get the realization. So they're all trying to escape now. They're all trying to get out. You got Smith, who's like doesn't want to. He's not want to been on this thing the whole time. The other like pilot dude, he just doesn't even care about anyone. He's just like, I'm gonna get off. Like, so he leaves the other girl. I can never remember her name. It's the one that has the son. Like she's trying to get all the tubes at the end to get all the oxygen to bring because they fix it, and then she gets distracted by
scrubbers.
She gets
which are apparently those halogen lights or like little tubes. Those are CO2 scrubbers. And they're just like, 1, 2, we need 26 of these. Like just pulling them out. It's like, okay.
And then so she's like, fine, everything's good to go. And then she sees her son, and that's like
drops everything. Yeah.
That whole scene was kind of poorly done. Like the way they handled that.
Tell me, that's a glaring plot hole, because she pulls out all the CO2 scrubbers of the Event Horizon to bring them back to the Lewis and Clark.
Oh, yes.
She's holding a lot of them. She's holding like half of them. The one dude goes, I forgot his name, but the helmsman, the actual guy who flies the ship, he's like, Smith. I'm out. Like you follow me, and he's going. And Peter's the one who's got the rest. She like sees the like vision of her son and drops everything. Chases this thing up, however many stories. I didn't know how tall this was, but then eventually, best fall death I've seen in a long time. She like sees her son and is like walking toward him and goes, ah! and just like falls down a pit. Like every other pit is surrounded by railing and scaffolding and whatnot, and he manages to lure her to the one like dangerous hole in the whole ship.
And the ship knows all the danger spots,
Yep. And then when she falls,
it's an
explosion of blood. Explosion of blood hits it, but then you see her like swallow. She's like, ugh. And I was like, oh, maybe she's somehow alive. I'm like, oh no, she just swallowed after she died.
That's the next gory death, and then you got the other one is DJ, like that, like gets. That's when like Dr. Weir, or that's after Dr. Weir. He's gone to try to.
Here's the one that does it.
He's the one that goes to the gravity well and does some kind of thing. He's having an hallucination. I don't even know what happened. It's like, I think they're arguing or whatever, but then he rips his eyes out for some reason. Like,
he sees Peters and he goes, oh no, Peters.
Oh yeah, he feels bad. And then he gets like, that's right. That's right.
And then he decides to take his own eyes out.
Yeah.
And then he returns and he basically like dissects DJ and like hangs his body from
weird
hooks.
I don't understand. Yeah. So this is where it goes back to like my
what
other.
What do we have against this guy? Like, geez, like of all the people to do this to.
He's living chaos. He's seen the light of chaos. He
Okay.
wants to live it. But
So he's
wait,
turned
hold
on
on.
the.
This
Oh
is
no, I'm just saying. I know, but I'm just saying. I'm just trying to beat the movie out a little bit better. He's at this point after he does that to DJ, um, Dr. Weir does turn on a 10-minute countdown thing that the gravity drive is going to turn on and take them back. So there's a time limit. But go on, please.
well, the whole thing where like you have like the weird thing happening with DJ, and then you got like them all doing something at different parts of the ship, and he's spending all this time dissecting him. How come
Yes.
no one runs into him? This ship has only 3 rooms. Like,
And it's really quick to get from room to room. You just walk for a couple minutes and then you're on the other side of the ship.
but it's
Let's talk about.
the only thing I was trying to
Oh, go
bring
ahead.
up earlier was like this: the side of the ship doesn't make sense for how many people there are. The fact that you
Yes.
should be able to hear, like DJ doesn't even scream; he just goes goo goo, like he doesn't even like.
He knocks him out and then he starts cutting into him and he goes whoop, whoop, and
Yeah.
that's it. And then it's like, okay, no thrashing, no nothing, just yeah.
And then I think that's when you have the realization that Weir also, because Weir, I think, he cuts DJ after he puts the bomb on the ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he says something to Laurence Fishburne, like I don't know, Larry Fishburne says something to him like we're going home, and like he steps back into the
Yeah.
shadow and says, "I'm already home."
Yeah, that's when you start realizing because
But
that's before he takes his eyes out, and I think
yes,
he's starting to lose control of himself. I think he's really getting back and forth. They don't show it really well, but like he is conflicted. You know what I mean? Like because he does have this concern for Peters, but then he rips his eyes out. So it's like,
I don't need these anymore. This way, I don't see the crew dying, and it's not my fault. So let's talk about Cooper. Cooper's on the outside of the Lewis and Clark fixing the ship,
doing a good job.
and he is doing a good job. And it's like even like something else happened, and he still fixes it, and he goes, "Damn, I'm good." And and then all of a sudden, he gets like like the ship, like whatever happens with the ship, and he gets like
Gets blown up.
maybe it's the explosion or something like blows him off of the ship. And I was like, no, not Cooper. I'm
Poor
like, he's
Cooper.
the only person. And as he's doing it, he's like somebody ripped from the 20th century, just put into this movie. Yeah, like somebody from the 90s just put into this movie. Because his reactions are the best. And here, let me grace you with these. Like this is him being blown off of the ship in his suit, but being blown away from the ship into open space. And then when he comes back,
Wait,
when he
you did
figures
that
out
so
how to use
loud you
his,
cut out. Just so you know, I didn't
oh,
hear any of it. But that's what it would sound like in space. So good job.
and then to get back to the ship, he figures out how to like bleed the oxygen to like give him a boost back, which, especially looking at the visuals of the movie, seems impossible because from his perspective, it just looks like
Nothing. Yeah.
endless space and there's nothing. Like, where is even the ship?
Before he does
But
that, though,
he's
I
just,
want his delivery of lines. He's so positive. He's like,
yes,
he's like, all right, Cooper, you can figure this out. How are we gonna do this?
damn, I'm
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Mhm. Come on, baby bear. And so he blasts the oxygen and it sends him back to the ship. And his line as he does that, "Here I come, motherfuckers!" But did you also notice there was a reference to Back to the Future, I feel, in this movie?
No.
From Sam Neill. Sam Neill's character, they say something like Captain Miller says something to him, and he says, like, where we're going. Oh, he said, what happened to your face? Like, what happened to your eyes? He's like, where we're going. We don't need roads. I mean,
I
eyes.
don't think he was trying to do Back to the Future
No, that's
reference.
what I heard. I pictured him putting on the Doc Brown ones, like those like silver sunglasses over his like ripped out eye. Like
Yeah,
I
I
saw
don't know about that one. That's a stretch.
Back to the Future reference. So yeah,
It's in the
I
That's what's in
yeah.
the director's cut. You got Marty McFly that shows up.
So this is them. Like Stark is on the ground. Lawrence Fishburne has revived her, but she's weak. And he's facing off with Dr. Weir, who is saying, like, where we're going, we don't need roads. I mean, eyes. And then this is when Cooper comes back to the ship and like lands right at the bridge and is on the window, like, hello. And that's when Weir decides instead of shooting at Laurence Fishburne, he shoots the like rail gun or like bolt
The
gun.
drill gun. I don't know what this
Yeah,
is.
I don't know either. At Cooper, and somehow that doesn't kill him. It just blasts him. Is this when he gets blasted out? Is that when
Just
what sends him out into space?
he ends up going to the airlock after that, but he gets pushed out. He pushed away, and he
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
I
how
think
he gets there. To be honest, in the end, I have no clue.
yeah. And
But
this is
this
when we see Weir get sucked out into space,
yeah.
right?
Before this is where he gives all the information on chaos and hell, and the
Hmm.
dimension brings you to hell, and there's a whole other dimension you don't even know, and all this stuff. I can't remember where this happens. There's a point where it's like somebody, I think Miller, has like extreme visions of like horrific shots of like the crew being like just tortured and just like horrible
Yes.
visions. Like that was
Yes. He
disturbing.
like gives them the visions. He like gives them to Larry Fishburne. That's at the very end. When they're like in the gravity drive room,
Okay.
he like shows Miller what's in store for the crew, and that's like part of Miller's motivation to end things the way he did. But I do like, yeah. So the decompression is happening on the bridge because we are shot at Cooper. So Stark and Captain Miller are trying to get out.
Those
Captain
are good
Miller, I guess,
scenes.
Laurence Fishburne has got real arm strength to rope climb against decompression. He's just like away from the thing that's sucking everything out into
The
space. But
practical effects of that shot's actually pretty good though. Like the way he gets
oh, I
flips up and he's like floating in there and like the wind's coming, like look pretty
not
cool.
bad, not bad. It was believable. It was believable. But yeah, you're right. This is like this. Just thinking about like the scenes that flash when him and Weir are confronting each other at the end. It is trying to be kind of like Hellraiser in
Yeah.
space. Like, isn't that
Yep.
what this is? All I could think of was like insert horror movie name in space. Like that's what they were trying. But yeah, it feels a little bit like The Shining. You do have that scene. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You mentioned it.
But yeah, so
Um,
we'll get there. Like so the whole story point, right, is Miller is going to like blow up. They're gonna do the thing that we talked about earlier, where they blow up the middle part.
Foreshadow this, like where you separate the back section from the bridge and let the drive and all the rest of that go, and then the bridge is like a lifeboat. They kept saying lifeboat.
Yep. So you got Stark and Cooper, and Justin's still there he's in the pod, stasis pod,
Mr.
and
Justin.
Mr. Justin's still good. He survives this. I don't know how, but it like so um they're there, and he leaves to go blow this up, knowing I think farewell that he's not going to survive it because
He tells them like lock the door behind me. Yep. It seems like he knows it's a one-way trip.
so that he's trying to turn things off in the gravity well, and then he gets the vision of the fire dude again that turns into Sam Neill because the ship brings Sam Neill back from space.
Yeah. Pulls him back in. And his body, he's like straight up Hellraiser. He's all like cut up
So
and he's
disturbing.
naked. It's like, yeah, it's just he's not really naked. He's just like bodysuit dude, like flesh that's all been mutilated.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's weird to see Sam Neill in this kind of role. I
as I
don't
say,
think he was very good in this movie. I think his acting was pretty terrible,
I
and
think when I had told you
not
I love
really
Sam
great.
Neill at the end, when I told you this before we watched the movie, or you hadn't gotten to the part yet, because I mean, when I watched in '97, all I knew with him was Jurassic Park, and I'm just
Yeah,
like, it was just weird seeing him do this role in general. Like I was just like, wow, that's different. Like just seeing him this way. So that's why I was like,
well,
it's just that's why it was memorable. Let's put it that way.
I'll agree with that. I bet he fired his agent though after this. It's like no more of these, please. But so, yep, Miller eventually sacrifices himself. He gets to the detonator and explodes it, and which separates the ship, the two sides, and the gravity drive activates, and it pulls the stern of the ship, the back of the ship, into a black hole, I
Yep.
guess.
So Miller's in hell right now.
Yep. but I didn't understand like why into a black hole. Like why is there a black hole here too?
Well, that's the whole
But
way. That's how the gravity well works. That was
oh,
the
is
whole
that it? I
science.
thought it was that it created a oh, it's because it creates an event horizon. All
It
right,
creates a
sure.
it,
I
it,
thought
it
it
creates a
was
it
warm.
creates a black hole pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's
So
how
it gets
they
sucked into that, and Stark and Cooper uh,
and
get into
Mr. Justin.
Mr. Justin. Well, they get into stasis tubes next to Mr. Justin, and then we both watched this. I think we can say this. We both watched this on Pluto TV, which is we were able to watch it for free with commercials. But I'll tell you, Justin, this is where a commercial intervened right here at this moment. They go into the stasis and wait to be rescued. And then come back from commercial break, and it's 72 days later on
Yeah,
the screen.
yeah. I vaguely remember like Stark looks out the window and it's like she
It's
goes.
less than a minute of
She
footage
she
after
she she looks out the
commercial.
window and says Miller, and it just cuts to commercial. And I'm like, is that
Yep.
how it ends? Like it said, I don't remember.
No, I was like, really? I'm like, okay, that can't be the ending. I'm like, they dragged it out way longer. I thought that it was going to end before we weren't going to have like a fight in the gravity drive room. I thought it was going to end with them like breaking off the ship and like his decompression and we're going out into space. But no, they brought him back for more hell scenes and this, and I was like, okay. I was really excited when they said it's 20 minutes till detonation. I was like, good. That means this movie will be over in 20 minutes. I was just excited for the ending. But when it comes back from commercial break, yep, 72 days later, the event horizon gets boarded by a rescue party, find the crew in stasis, and Stark comes out first. And she's like like what would you say? She's like second in command, right? On the
Yeah,
ship. She's like
yeah.
the first officer. Um,
The
and,
lieutenant,
and
technically.
immediately uh she sees the rescuer is Weir instead, is what's his name? Sam Neill. And then she's like screaming, like, wah, wah. But it was a nightmare, and she's like really coming out of the stasis again, and Cooper is there, like trying to comfort her with terrible ADR at the end. Cooper, his mouth clearly not moving, and the
Oh, I
sound
didn't
of his
notice
voice
that.
never changing in tone as the camera pulls away. He's like, Stark, it's fine. It's Cooper. I'm here. I'm here. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. It's okay now. Stark, I'm here. It's Cooper. It's just like repeating all these words, and it's
Do you,
like I can see he's not even talking.
do you want some
And
coffee?
it's like
You
pulling
want,
away,
you want some black
pulling
inside
away,
you?
and
You remember
and
that
then the
line?
doors close. Yes, yes. And then the doors close and the movie's over.
Yep.
Like 30 seconds after the commercial break comes back. It's like, okay, yeah, they made it. Quick nightmare.
And
Little
very
last jump.
then loud obnoxious music again.
And then we get the Prodigy. Yep. With I forgot the name of the song, but this was from their first album, The Fat of the Land. Prodigy. And looking, I stayed. What I wrote at the end, Justin, was, "What the fuck was that ending?" Like, just it should
You had to
have,
get one more scare. You had to get one more scare in.
but it wasn't even a scare. Like, it was like, okay, duh, they're doing it. Like, it felt
I know. I
so.
know. I know.
But yeah, we got Orbital in a '90s techno wet dream of music to end the movie, and that is how Event Horizon stumbles across the finish line. So overall, Justin, would you recommend this movie?
Yes. To somebody that
Yes, you
likes
said.
that has never seen it before.
Are you into techno horror? Then this might be the movie for you.
I mean, like I said, there is people that would be into this kind of movie. Like that's not. I'm saying it doesn't
Sure.
to the right person. You know.
There are good things about, especially that first half, the first movie. And I think this could have been better if it was an actual alien being and not the ship being sentient.
I thought the ship storyline
What
was
part of it is
fine.
sentient? Like the brain? Like the computer? They're using the computer all the way through the end. Like what part of the ship
It's
is
just
sentient? That's
what
what
I mean, like I
I
don't
know. I don't understand because it went into
why
like a
they're
dimension of craziness and blood
Yeah.
orgy.
I mean, you can't really explain that part. I mean, that's just that's it. Like that's the answer. You don't have to like give an explanation. They just, it's
Why does
it's just sentient.
Well, here's my question for you. Why does the ship need people? If it just wants to go back to the crazy dimension,
Doesn't
can't it just
it's sentient, but
sentient?
it can't. I don't think it can like.
Oh, it needs someone to press the button. Is that it?
Yeah.
You just need someone to come and turn on the button.
It's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the whole motivation of this ship is just get people on.
But
so
again,
they can
there's a plot hole there because I don't know how the gravity well turns on initially. So there's that plot hole, I guess.
Well, Sam Neill turns it on.
Not initially, at least not initially, because he was on the Lewis and Clark still. He stayed behind.
Justin got close to it, but maybe it's the liquid in the Stargate there in the gravity drive. That's what's sentient. It's like still connected to the.
Well, Justin was playing with the controls, I guess, before it turned on, so maybe he accidentally turned on.
True.
But yeah, it needs somebody. It needs somebody to bring him back. So it makes me wonder: was there somebody from the old crew that maybe got it out of there? Like try to get out of hell. I want to see that story. How did it come back? Like, why didn't it just stay there?
Did what come? Oh, the actual ship. Like, why did it come back?
Yeah, like why didn't it just stay?
That's a very good question. To lure another 7 people. Like like a real elaborate plan to get like 5 people at a time. And a huge rescue mission to fucking Neptune to get 7 more people so they could push a button for it. It's a convoluted plan by this ship that is sentient.
Yeah,
it could be sentient, but it could also just be stupid too. It could be, it can think for itself. It's just an idiot. The ship. I'm sorry. Oh, I got to tell you, I would recommend The Shadow over this movie because at least I laughed really hard with The Shadow.
You know what? You saying that makes me think if we do enough of these, we're gonna do a bracket again. We're definitely gonna do a bracket.
Down, tournament of favorites. Okay.
Right now, The Shadow is winning. No, I definitely would recommend The Shadow over this film.
Sure. Yes, by a mile. But oh my gosh,
it was fun to talk about it with you. If anything, yes, it wasn't not as good as it was not as good. It's not as good as I remember it to be. I wish it had. I did read a review from Ebert. It's like they all say the same thing we're saying. It's like it had like a really good start to it, and it just sort of like goes off the, like you said, off the rails. It goes too extreme. It just
takes a lot of liberties with the audience too. Like makes us take these like leaps, or what do you call it? Like makes us suspend our disbelief a little too many times. It turns into something else. Like it really does turn into like Hellraiser in space.
Yep.
And you who have seen so many of the Hellraiser movies can attest to that. I mean, it just
seen a couple of them, yeah. But yeah,
changes a different kind of movie.
Anyways,
but I don't know. Maybe a different director, maybe a different script. This could have been something, really memorable. But I mean, we remembered it.
It had a good crew for it. I think it had a good cast, and I think it had a good like. I think the sets were really good. Some of the costuming was good. A
lot of it was good.
There was a lot of good things about it. So I'd like at least say give it a try. Just understand that the pacing and plot is very disjointed at the end. That's all I could say.
Watch it with liquor. That's what I'll say. Watch it with a beer or 5. You'll need it to get through.
Watch it with your children. That's what I say.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? It is like it starts out as Alien and then turns into Hellraiser. Like it tries to do that.
But and I think we're good. We're done.
Yeah. Credit for trying. I'm just glad that the character of Coop made it out alive. I love Cooper.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Yes. All right, Justin. Well, this has been really fun.
Yep.
I'm excited to talk about our next one for next week, but we'll get into that later.
Yep.
But as always, you can catch us playing favorites here every Tuesday and Thursday night around 9:15 ish. Streaming on Tuesdays, our Let's Play. And right now we're doing our God of War Let's Play. I'm having a lot of fun warring it up as a god. It's really fun. And join us again next Thursday for another classic in parentheses, quotation marks, 90s flick. And yeah, this has been Playing Favorites. I'm Paul.
And I'm Mr. Justin.
I'm
Have,
glad you made it, Mr. Justin.
have a good night.